Good morning, it's Craig here. It's the 27th of December and I've just finished around a 3 hour session of writing. I didn't do Pomodoros again, I really just sort of pushed straight through, although I did have a couple of breaks. I guess, made breakfast, ate breakfast while writing, looking through a few books, a couple of art books for some different thoughts on things. It's been a good morning. It feels like a big morning. It feels like I woke up and felt like I really wanted to get a sense of the whole book, and I know it's probably been working towards that idea in the last couple of days. I went from sort of starting to build some action in a scene about 4 or 5 days ago, and then I got very philosophical on the different concepts within the book, and then I started to do a little bit of chapter planning, and then sort of got a bit of a better understanding of the world and the environment and what sort of constitutes the reality of what's happening inside of the book. And then I just felt very impatient. And I know impatience on one hand isn't a good trait. I think of, not to, necessarily need to always quote some sort of German author, but I mean Kafka and his, idea that all mistakes, all errors that people make are simply mistakes of not having enough patience, that if you had have just thought it through more and taken the time, then you wouldn't have made that mistake. And I think I was caught in this morning in feeling impatient in that I wanted to get the whole novel mapped out. I just wanted to get a sense. I knew where it ended, I knew where it started, but I wanted to fill everything else in between. And so as I was sitting here and I sort of had a bit of an idea of the first half of the novel, I thought that's good. I sort of mapped out that pretty quickly, and then I thought part two, I had an environment in mind, I had an ending in mind, a couple of sort of art reference points. There's a board game, Scythe, and the artist who does that, a Polish artist who does these beautiful sort of rural 1930s, I guess, sort of steampunk fused with other sort of parts of regional lifestyle. It's beautiful stuff, and I was thinking about that. I've been thinking about that for quite a while, but not in the context of this book, so I was sort of reapplying it and mapping different ideas and seeing how they would fit with what I've currently got, so it makes something completely new. And then I just thought, just do it, just push on through and make the novel, understand where it's going. And I think you get sort of caught in that space of thinking, like you put an idea down. So I had an idea, say for a particular chapter, and then afterwards I thought, well, I'm pleased I've got an idea, like I'm pleased it's there, but is that the best idea that I can come up with? Is there not something even better than that? And I think that's where, one of the lessons I've tried to teach myself in the past couple of years has been the idea of, we don't have time for perfect. If you just sit and want to keep polishing something or replacing something with something better that you've come up with, on one hand it can be really good, obviously, to keep getting better and to improve upon things and to really focus and refine things, and that's a real strength and a real quality to attain to. But then you've also got the idea that you just won't move forward. It'll be a Zenu's paradox of you just keep, you think you're moving forward, but you're actually just sort of slicing it in half and feeling like you've made progress. And you might be getting a finer product, but you never stop doing that. And whether it's actually a finer product or whether you just have the illusory consideration that it's getting better because you feel like time plus effort's got to mean that you're getting better. So that being said, I put ideas down. I liked them. I thought they were cool, but I was self-conscious at the same time of thinking, this is the novel that I want to write. Is this really what I want to commit to? But also thinking it's just a draft. I mean, I'm just plotting out literally almost a sentence or two per act that I had, sort of, so 4 acts per chapter, 6 chapters, so 24 acts. And I just did like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, etc., right through to 6.4, and just had a sentence or two for each and a couple of auxiliary notes attached. I'm using Scrivener to write, so it's got, you know, those nice planning capacities within the software. And when I got to the end of it about 10 minutes ago, you know, after sort of starting at about 7 o'clock and finishing at 10, I just looked back at it and thought, I really like that. That's something I had no idea would happen this morning when I woke up. If I wake up tomorrow and did a whole other version of that and said, you know, wipe that, do version 2, I'm sure I'd come up with something completely different. And while it was very tempting to do that, you know, I love the idea of being really sort of brutal in a really brute force creative sense, and saying, okay, you've planned one novel, one version of this novel, discard that, now do it again with a whole other way of taking those characters through the paces that you want them to go through, and then the next day do a third version and a fourth, and then when you've got a number of those versions, just put them together, pick and choose what works, and make something really, you know, of the highest quality. And I mean, I'm tempted to think in that way, but I also, you know, if I quadruple the amount of time that I spend on everything, then it's going to go from a 2-year plan to an 8-year plan, and I just don't want to do that. I think it's not healthy. It's not good to think in that capacity. I think it ends up being like a doctoral thesis that is so big you never accomplish it. I think sometimes about that study where you know, researchers showed people, speaking of a doctoral thesis, showed people what sort of condition their mouth was in terms of oral hygiene, and they showed one group of people photographs of supposedly their mouth. It wasn't actually their mouth. They showed them photos of teeth, and they said, hey, these teeth are actually in really good condition. I would like you to keep brushing and doing a bit more though, because you really need to keep on top of it. And those people didn't really increase the amount they brushed. They did a bit, but you know, they thought, well, I'm fine, you know, don't need to do much else. They showed a second group of people a version of their mouth that was just dreadful, like it was holes everywhere, black, you know, it was awful. Bad mouth. And they said to these people, listen, you've got to pick up your game, you've really got to brush and floss and do all this stuff, and if you do all that, you'll get back on track, but man, oh man, your mouth is a mess. And those people did nothing. They're like, it's too far gone, my mouth is not going to get any better, and I'm just going to live with what I've got. So the people who were shown good mouth did nothing. People who were shown bad mouth did nothing. They showed another third group of people, like a middle average sort of quality mouth. It was fine, but not fantastic, certainly not dreadful. And the dentist gave the same advice, you know, you need to brush and floss and so on, and you'll get back on track. And those people really put in the effort. You know, they thought, well, I want to do the right thing so I don't get too far gone, but there's also not too much wrong that it's not an unachievable task to fix and complete what I'm doing to my mouth. I mean, that's a long-winded sort of point that I think that middle ground is really important. I think if you just too readily think, oh, this novel's fine, the first, you know, version of the plan I bang out, no trouble, doesn't matter, I'll do a second novel later. I don't necessarily think you will attain the sort of quality that you want from that, because you're taking it to lightly, and I've certainly done that in the past where I've just rushed through and thought, oh, I'll do a better one later, and never actually do a better one later because you just don't have time, or you don't think about it, and maybe you're a bit let down that you rushed something that you should have spent more time on. And of course, if you spend too much time and you turn it into this massive doctoral style, this is going to be a 10-year process to write Ulysses or whatever, then do you ever actually do it, or is the mountain just too big to climb, regardless of how small the steps are that you might build? 10 years is lots of going up those steps. And so I think the middle ground is good. I've spent time this morning planning. It's certainly by no means the end. It's just a draft, like I said, a few sentences for each act within each chapter to give me a better sense of the scope of the book. And from there, I'll be fine-tuning and putting a lot more content, reflecting on what the characters are doing in terms of their growth, what the scenes will contain to sort of bring those acts to life. And within that, that's really where the changes are going to happen, but the meat's going to be in terms of actually what it's going to look like a sentence or two as a summary for an act or a chapter is really not a lot to go on. It's a general sense of space, a general sense of maybe one sort of crisis event that happens, or a particular revelation that happens, but it's really just almost a colour, like a colour wash, I think, across the page, and you say, well, that's blue, and I really like that, the blue feels right, but now we're actually going to draw the scene, and that's where the changes can come, and other things can happen, and I'll feel better about, about just building something that I get more and more excited about, because at the moment, the plan that I've got, I really like it. I didn't just put down something and think I'm not happy about it, I'll move on. I think it's the best I could have come up with this morning, and is probably the best plan for the novel. My hesitancy is just that I don't know, we'll see. There's so much more to do, and I think now's the time for patience. I've been impatient. I've plotted out the novel in 3 hours this morning. I like it, but now it's time to be patient and massage it further, fill in the dots, change things where they need to be changed, and make sure that the whole schema and the whole story is exactly where I want it before I start to really have a fixed idea of the way the story is going to travel in a way, so I don't get to an irreversible stage where I think, oh, I actually don't like that, but it's too late to change that because it's going to impact upon too much. So that's where I'm at. So I'm good, I'm happy, I'm really pleased. Again, a good session this morning. The consistency is just the best thing ever in terms of feeling like the writing is moving forward, and doing these each day is keeping me accountable to that. So thank you. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll be back tomorrow morning.